Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Wow, haven't done that in a while. That felt good. How you doing today? Back with the one and only Dion from Dion Talk. How you doing, buddy?
Howdy, I'm excited to be here. This is how I know it's Tuesday.
There you go. There you go. Hey, I want to have a conversation with you about a 90-minute interview between Caleb Hammer, Graham Stephan, and Jack Selby from the Iced Coffee Hour. This happened to be a 90-minute discussion, which I enjoyed because I did it on a 7-mile run. So I was listening to it while going through it. So you introduced me first off to Caleb Hammer, I don't know, a week or two ago. Obviously, we both know Graham and Jack from the Iced Coffee Hour. But have you seen the interview yet? Just so I have clarity.
Nope, it's in my queue. I've seen it. It's there. So generally, I like Caleb Hammer. I don't tend to watch his channel. I watch Graham's reaction to his channel. And then when I saw them together on the Iced Coffee Hour, I thought, okay, yep, that's going to go in the watch future list.
Very, very cool. Well, there's a couple of things that I noted down that were pretty interesting. One, both Graham and Caleb admitted that they still have a fear of dying broke. I think Caleb said at one point his fear is he's going to die in Walmart, aisle. I don't know Caleb well, but he's got a massive channel. I'm sure he's doing great things. Obviously, Graham shares his income a lot on his channel, but I think it's really interesting that these individuals who, by all accounts, are wildly successful still have this nagging insecurity. So I wanted to ask you, off the cuff, what are your thoughts on that? And do you have insecurity problems?
So they're wildly successful in growing channels and generating revenue from their channels.
Mhm.
And I'll relate this to my personal story where I made it to 40, right? I worked in law enforcement. I was in the Marines. I was a truck driver. I always had just a regular job and never really had much money in the bank. I let my spouse handle the finances, which is why it kind of went sideways on me when that ended. And I started working at the CDL school. I went in just as an instructor, found out I'd like to teach, slowly got demoted down to the president of the company and started making real money. I started at $17 an hour. So it took years to get, within a decade to get to what I thought was significant money. And I always thought, I'm going to die broke. I'm going to work until I die because
Mhm.
my income was based on my output. And so if you're Graham Stephan, if you're Caleb, and if you're Jack, right? Because I like Jack too, but your income is based on your output, right? They stop creating content, that channel, well, it will produce something, it'll go down, right? So in my position, I started house hacking. A couple of years later, buy an asset that produces money that I don't have to sell my life for 1 hour at a time. Year and a half later, buy another one, house hack a fourplex, buy a triplex, emptied out my retirement account to buy the triplex. I started moving my money into a way to get rid of that feeling,
Mhm.
to where now I'm trying to think of, here's a question I would go with. Is it possible for me to die broke? How would that have to happen? What would it take? Property values that are paid off that don't have debt on them to go to zero somehow. A health concern that took millions of dollars and isn't covered by my what we call it when insurance doesn't have a cap, right? I have that policy. Like all of those things in place. So I've had to go into like fantasy world to think of what would happen to make me broke versus go back to when I had a really good job, was running a company and growing it successfully. I lost sleep. One of the reasons I got into
Mhm.
listening to podcasts was I'd put something in my ear with an earbud, like one of the outside ones,
Mhm.
to distract my mind from thinking about money and
Oh.
finances by listening to people talk about money and finances. And then I realized, wow, once you put money to work,
Hmm.
you sleep like a baby.
Yeah, it was really interesting to hear these guys, which I have to imagine are seven-figure and probably multi-seven-figure earners. Obviously, I think that's top line. They both have massive teams. So, there's a difference between gross and net. I get it, but I'm sure they're both netting probably seven figures, but I certainly high six figures. But I think you're right. I mean, in the discussion, which again I was listening to, not watching, right? Because I was running. Um, they did talk a lot about YouTubers going broke, right? There's a bunch of YouTubers that blow up for a minute. They go buy the eight-figure home, they buy the Ferraris, and then pretty soon they're back at zero. I don't know. They were mentioning names. None of them I've heard of. That's not my thing. But I guess there is this notion that you're one whoops away from tanking, I guess, on YouTube or becoming irrelevant. I don't know. Um, which I thought was an interesting discussion.
Yeah, so we are on a platform that can go away at any point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Legislation change, ownership scam, whatever it is, the way it pays, right? So I definitely don't think that you or I have the concern of YouTube going away impacting our finances. Right, right. Your portfolio produces multiples of what your YouTube does, and my YouTube produces less than $1,000 a month. So, like,
Yeah.
if $1,000 a month impacted me, I'd still be working a job.
Right. Exactly.
But if somebody doesn't have income that doesn't come from a job, right? I could see if you have a good job and you blow up on YouTube, so you quit your job, you you only have YouTube
Right. Yeah. And it was
versus
really, yeah. Go ahead.
versus
I was
Ken
gonna.
McElroy, right?
Right.
Sorry.
First
He's
Ken. Yeah.
got
Yeah.
this massive portfolio. He goes on YouTube, and because of his association with Robert Kiyosaki and his background, and he's a good speaker,
Oh
his
yeah.
content does really well. I don't, it's not even a rounding error.
No, I'm sure he doesn't even look at it. Yeah. You know what? I'll tell you. I bet Ken McElroy loses money producing content.
I would think
Right.
so.
Right. From the editor, the video, all of that. So, yeah, shout out to him. But the reason I wanted to talk about Caleb and Graham's fear is in the same discussion, Jack, who I'm sure does quite well, but at least currently is orders of magnitude behind Caleb and Graham. He's like, I'm going to use my words because I don't actually remember him saying this, but he's like, I feel rich. I I feel great, which I thought was a really interesting juxtaposition. And I think to your point, one of the reasons that Jack felt better is later in the episode he talked about he house hacks and he basically lives for free. So he's like, dude, I go work at Chipotle or Starbucks or whatever. My car's paid off. I got no other debt. I'm good. And oh, by the way, I have this skill now of video and content and blah blah blah. I'm sure I can get a job. Uh, so it was really weird to hear Jack basically say, "I feel rich," and then Graham and Caleb to basically highlight their insecurity. And again, that's their word, not mine. It was an odd juxtaposition.
So I try not to talk about them too much because I really like them. And they don't generally watch my content very much. They do watch some because I've seen some comments, but the people who owned the CDL school that I worked at,
Oh, okay.
they didn't expect the school to do very well. They bought it thinking it'll make a couple $100,000 a year. They were really trying to put money to work in a feel good situation.
Yeah.
They wanted to help people get CDLs. And then I had a couple of ideas that blew the school up size wise. It started making millions in profit every year. They moved from pretty decent house into what I would call mansion, right? It's 7,000 square feet, so probably not mansion, but to me,
Oh,
huge.
that's anything over five is a mansion. Let's just give it to them. They're
Okay,
good.
all right, fair enough. And pool, and then they have the yard people that come, the pool people that come, the two different type of house cleaners that come, and the tutors and like all the stuff that comes with it. And then when they started listening to me talk about retiring, they thought, well, Dion can do this for about 5,000 a month. We would need 45,000 a month or so. And
Wow.
so, and not to share their personal details, but they are starting to downsize what they're doing. They moved from
Ah,
Arizona to Florida, another mansion. Now they're moving to like Tennessee,
okay.
right? They're going to move to a market where they don't have the $4 or $5 million payments going out for the house. They don't need the teams of people to manage it. And they have some rentals they're going to sell and buy some more, and they're generating revenue without having to own the company be the only source of income. So to me, it's really
Nice.
cool to see them do that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they've lived in constant fear
Wow.
for the decade I've known them because the school started doing so good and their life creep went right with the school. And
Yeah.
it's weird running a CDL school. A recession is a good thing,
Mm.
right? Recession,
Yep.
people change jobs. There's more people to make money from. But what happened from 2016 to 2020 was it wasn't a recession, it was a booming
No.
economy.
Yeah.
And then this, things changed. I never had that fear. I was
Mm,
house hacking, right? I
right.
paid off vehicle. I was like, yeah, if this job went away, I could go get I've never worked in fast food. I can go get a fast food job, work 20 hours a week
Yeah.
and be totally fine.
Right. Yeah. Pretty interesting. The other thing I want to shout out is Caleb, again, during his discussion, did talk about he has put money into rental properties. Again, I don't know where, I don't know how many, but he did highlight, again, his number that he had $10,000 in net cash flow coming in, which gave him some level of security. Obviously, it would be enough for his life, but it couldn't support the company and paying payroll and all of that. But it does feel like um, all three of them, Caleb, uh, Jack, and Graham, are buying assets. I think Graham is probably buying more businesses now, if I follow along. But they are taking their income and buying assets little by little. So that was I was glad to hear Caleb kind of mention, you know what, buying one rental at a time, my words, not his, works. I mean, that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's what you hope when you see somebody that's that successful is that they do something with it, and whether that's a sports ball player who becomes successful super quick, and or the lottery winner or something, is that they get good coaching, good financial coaching, educate themselves, make good decisions. It's not like all of a sudden having money makes you understand money.
No, yeah. Earning income is a skill. Understanding money is a skill. They are not connected. They
Right.
are not connected. And then the last thing I want to talk about is Graham mentioned this, and I didn't know this. Apparently, Graham held a data entry job for about 6 weeks,
It's the
and
one time he had a W-2 job. Yeah.
yeah, I did. If I heard it, I had forgotten it, but it was really interesting to hear how soul crushing that was, and that he had to go do something else. So I'm guessing you may know this story, so I'll ask: was that what he had before he became a real estate agent? Is that kind
It,
of this
it
the
was. It was before being a real estate. If I remember it right, my memory is not the one I
ah
trust. It was before. It was right out of high school, and I remember the way he associated it was,
okay.
and this is me paraphrasing. I could be wrong, but Graham said something like, "I didn't do really good in high school. I didn't get good grades. I didn't expect to go to college, so I thought I'd have to go out and get a job.
Mm-hmm.
And when he did, he hated it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have my two brothers. One worked as a dishwasher for about 2 weeks, and one worked as a line cook for probably about a month. Those are the only two jobs they've ever had. Outside of that, they were entrepreneurs, started tree services. One bought rentals and retired. The other one still runs his tree service. They always thought I was insane for getting a job. First, they couldn't believe I joined the military. They were like, somebody tells you
Interesting.
when to go to the bathroom. How can you do
Oh,
that? It's like they were just had no concept of a paycheck because they'd only had those two short periods. So Graham's kind of in that
okay.
mindset of if you get money, you put it to work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
I'm still hoping someday to interview Graham and really talk about the OG Graham, right? Tell me that story. Let's go back. I think there's so many people that look at Graham today and go 4.6 million followers, buying this, buying that. We got to go back and remember Graham starting, in a recession. So I look forward to, putting it out there that hopefully someday that
I
happens.
I use Graham's story when relating to a lot of people. Like when he started as a real estate agent, he'd go 6 months without an income and then he'd sell a
Yeah.
big house and he'd get some money. So his idea was first, he was so young and to become a realtor, instead of like constantly chasing the next deal, he signed leases for a couple of years. He helped
Yeah,
people find their
exactly.
rentals, figuring they will become renters or buyers. So that's a strategy, long-term
Yep.
strategy. And then he thought, well, out here in Pasadena, these places are affordable. The rents make money. I can house hack. If I had and all it was some consistent income, then he could chase the dream of being a realtor because the spiky income wouldn't derail his life if he ever had a low period of
Mhm.
time. And so, like those concepts relate to a lot of investing strategies, and I
Yeah.
love the old Graham for that. I like
Yeah.
the new
I look
Graham
forward to it.
too,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
do like to remember the core where he came from.
At the end of the day, listening to Caleb, Graham, and Jack talk about money, when I think a lot of people would listen, think they're successful. And it really goes back to that money insecurity. Just this. And I think you're right. I mean, you and I sit back after doing buying assets for over a decade and just have a different reality, I guess. because we did it long enough where our passive income or semi-passive income greatly exceeds, what we need to live. So, yeah, I mean, to your point, I don't know how you go broke. It would have to be some devil, right? You'd have to become a drug addict or, something just like totally stupid that actually forces you to sell, raise cash, and just you eat. You basically have to eat your assets. That's about the only way it happens, I think.
Yeah, major health concern tends to be one of the main reasons why people end up going bankrupt. So insure, you know,
Yep.
um, I know that recycling capital makes sense, but when we talk about I have the two paid off properties, you have several. That's your piggy bank. If things go
Mm-hmm.
scorched earth, you have millions sitting there. And I I'm still small enough to actually share real numbers, right? Without seeming unattainable, right? That's why we talk about get to 4 rentals, not get to 187 rentals, because it's possible, but it seems really hard. But if you can get
Yeah.
to 4, then all the options open up. My cash flow, I have a video on my channel where I whiteboarded the truth about cash flow. And I literally broke down what's coming in, what I set aside for repairs, what my mortgages are, what my expenses are, what's left. And there's about right now, it's coming up on 20 grand. So in that video, it's like 18,000 a month that goes into an account. I live on somewhere between 3 and 5. So if I went broke, somehow all money gone, I just have to wait a month,
Yeah.
maybe 2. And then I have 20 grand, 30 grand sitting in the bank again. That's the point of cash flowing assets. It's not, I
Yeah.
need to go out and hustle. I got to go find a job. I got to tighten the purse strings. I just like, if I'm out of
Yeah.
money, I could spend my 3 to 5 thousand on credit cards if I was
Yeah.
completely out of money for the next month and still have 20 grand in 2 months.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's where we're trying to get everybody watching this video or listening to this video to the same point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, again, folks, if you want to watch the iced coffee hour, I thought it was a very interesting discussion. I don't know these gentlemen's ages, but I'm going to guess they average under 30, maybe certainly under 35. It was a great discussion. Dion, where can they find you?
Right here on YouTube, Dion Talk Financial Freedom.
Thank you, buddy.